Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. And today we have a very special guest with us on the sports page with Bob Case. Bob has so many different friends that are unique onto baseball, football, basketball, etc. And today, our guest is one of the original. When you think about Bo Jackson or Deion Sanders or any of the conglomerate of players who were able to play one sport professionally and then another, well, this guy was kind of a pioneer. Ron Reed played professional basketball, and he was also in the major leagues for 19 years. Bob, sometimes you come up with some of the most unique people ever, but he's also a world champ, 19 years, as we said, won 146 games in the majors. Great pitcher, right-hander, hard thrower, 3.46 ERA. And again, as a world champion, Bob, this is a guy that anywhere he goes, especially as a Philly, but he was also a Brave and an Expo. I'm sorry, not an Expo, a Chicago White Sox, and he played for the St. Louis Cardinals as well. Bob, do me a favor and tell me everything that I would need to know about Ron Reed.
Well, number one, and Ron, we're honored to have you on the show. And number one. Number two, if I told you everything, I'd take up the whole show telling you about all his accolades. But no, Ron had 19 years in the big leagues. How about you can start off, I knew Gene Conley with the Milwaukee Braves. He was the first guy I remember. I think Bill Sharman never played, but Ron was a dual player that played for the Detroit Pistons, played at Notre Dame, played with the Atlanta Braves, and I got to meet Ron when Darryl was like a rookie, and he was just a class guy, a nice guy, good-looking, tall guy, and all the players, everybody in baseball said his wife, Julie, was the most beautiful woman of any baseball wife, and that's what the word was back in the day. And I'm so happy to see he's been together with all this time, and they have two beautiful daughters. But, Ron, think about this. In '69, when the Braves were in the playoffs with the Mets, and they lost, and the Mets went on to become the Miracle Mets. That was a great team. And Ron won 18 games that year to get them in the playoffs. They had, I think Phil Niekro won 20 and Ron won 18, and there was Hoyt Wilhelm on the team. I mean, they had so many great players, and Orlando Cepeda and, Hank Aaron and all these great. So the guys that Ron played with in those early years, I mean, it was unbelievable, And Darryl Evans always told me that Ron really always treated him good, and when he broke in and everything. And that's what Darryl remembers. Ron was a veteran when Darryl broke in '69. Ron had already been there 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's like, he just had a great career. And then he goes on to win the world championship with the Philadelphia Phillies and Pete Rose and all those guys and Mike Schmidt. I mean, just an amazing, amazing career. And what I'm so happy about is how his personal life has been so great to have Julie there with him his whole life and his two daughters and everything. And, that's you can do all this stuff on the baseball field, but when I see guys' personal lives end up like yours, Ron, you're a poster boy for Major League Baseball. And I can't wait to hear you tell. So I want to hear about you going against Wilt Chamberlain. And I want to hear about, a lot of these different stories that you'll tell. I mean, and just talking about you and your roommates is great. I mean, Ron Schuler brought him down to the mart where my office was one day, and we were trying to get him some stuff wholesale for Julie. And that we hung out that day and we had a great time. But anyway, I just can't wait to hear your stories, Ron, because all I know is you're highly respected by every ball player and every teammate that you ever had. And I'm just honored to have you and hear you, and go for it.
I appreciate that, Bob. Thank you so much. Making it sound like a little more than it was. And I was just one of those really lucky athletes that had a chance to play in two sports and had managed to make a career out of baseball, and got my feet wet a little bit in the NBA. So just a very fortunate athlete. That's all I can say.
Well, you're being very humble, Ron. When you were a young kid, you grew up in Indiana. LaPorte, is that right? LaPorte, just a small little town in Indiana. Did you know you were going to go to Notre Dame when you were 4 or 5 years old, or did you want to go to Purdue or some other local school there in the great state of Indiana?
No, I wasn't really thinking that much about college when I was growing up. All I wanted to do was play sports. It didn't matter what it was. I played football, basketball, and baseball in high school, and I just fell in love with basketball. I wanted the possibility of maybe making it to the major leagues one day. I mean, the NBA one day, and I managed to do it. But once I got there, I found out I was a little bit overmatched for some of those guys, and I had baseball in the background. And as it worked out, there's a story to that too, how I got into baseball, and then managed to have a real decent career in baseball.
Well, I started out with a Louisville Slugger, a 27-ounce bat when I was playing Little League. You know, I was in the minors and then the majors and all that kind of stuff. And you had little Chico's bail bonds uniforms and stuff like that. Growing up, was that kind of like the way that it was for you? Was dad, or did you have another coach that you first found out that, one, I love the game, and two, I'm pretty good at it, and they're teaching me how to be better? What was your experience like?
Well, I had two people. Number one was my dad. My dad was a factory worker. He didn't even get a chance to finish high school back in his day, and he worked in the factory. But every night when he would come home during the summertime, I'd be waiting on the front porch with two gloves, and he warmed me up in the front yard. And he kept telling me there was something about the way I threw the ball and the way the ball moved that someday I got a chance to maybe make it in professional baseball. And he was my biggest backer. And he just kept pushing and pushing toward baseball. And I was kind of drifting more toward basketball at that time. But I owe my dad everything. There's nothing everything I have, I owe to my dear departed father. But the other person that came in was a guy by the name of Ken Schreiber. A lot of people across the country know that name. Ken came in and was the baseball coach at LaPorte High School my junior year, and I had him for 2 years. And in fact, he led LaPorte High School to the Indiana State Championship. Now, LaPorte has got a population of like 22,000 people. I mean, it's not a metropolis by any stretch of the imagination. And Ken was a big time baseball man, and he taught me a lot about getting in shape and getting all the fundamentals down. He was big on fundamentals, even at the high school age. So I owe him a lot too. He taught me all about backing up bases as a pitcher and the general things the pitcher has to do, and thinking about hitters and how they're standing in the batter's box, whether they're looking for a pitch inside or maybe a pitch outside. So he was pretty instrumental. So those two guys are the ones that really pushed me along and are the real reason why I had such a long career in baseball.
No kidding. Wow. You really bring up an interesting point with me, Ron. When my oldest boy was 4, here in Georgia, you're allowed to play. You could play, and it's t-ball. And a lot of other parents now know that 3, 4, or 5 years old, you can start playing. And how do you explain to a 4-year-old, if he's standing on second base, that if there's nobody on first and there's a ground ball hit to the shortstop, you can go, but you don't want to go? Or if it's hit to the second baseman, you may want to come right over. But if there's 2 outs, you want to make sure that you tag up. If there's so many things that you do. So I just learned run, stop, and go back. Those were my 3 signals to my kids and any kid that I coached when they were 4, 5, or 6 years old. Either run like crazy to me, stop at the base that you're at, or go back. There are so many complicated things. And Ken, you said your father would go over stuff like that. When did baseball start to take off for you? And I know you said basketball. We'll talk about that in just a second. You're 6'6", right? And you're a big man. Were you a Doberman? Not a Doberman. Were you a big Great Dane at one point where you're kind of clumsy? You're bigger than all the other kids, but you needed to catch up with your coordination. Was that something that you went through at any point in your life?
Very much so.
Really?
When I was growing up, it seems like my feet were growing faster than I was.
Okay.
I ended up with size 15. And
Wow.
I think my senior year, I had 15s. Like 8th or 9th grade, I was already into the dadgum 13s. So what I had to do was learn how to adjust to my feet. So one night, my dad came home from work, and he looked at me and he says, "You know what? You got to work on your coordination," and gave me a jumping rope. And I said, "Dad, I'm not going to jump rope. That's for girls." He said, "No, I want you to jump a certain amount of time every day. if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, but he said, I want you to absolutely work hard out with that jumping rope. And that's how I finally learned how to control my feet a little bit
How
better.
about that? Yeah. Yeah. Instead of hopscotch or what the girls were doing with the two ropes, he's teaching like a boxer, right? How to coordinate your feet and do a double take and learn to pace yourself and to get off of your feet and to be able to work on some of those leg muscles. Is that kind of what you were thinking behind it?
That was kind of what I was thinking, but I was thinking more of trying to learn how to control the feet to the point where I knew where the feet were going, and then of course they were going to take me along with them. And that the jumping rope was amazing. I mean, I really worked hard at it, and I got to the point where I got to do it pretty well. And then
Okay.
there was a stadium that we played football in Laporte called Kiwanis Field, and they had stadium steps there. And so Dad suggested I do a lot of running up and down steps, which I also did. And so those two things really, I started getting better and better with my feet control and overall coordination. And that was really instrumental in my basketball career, no question about that.
Well, let's talk about basketball. When did you start playing and dribbling with your size and everything like that? I'm sure that there was a coach somewhere that wanted to give you a ball, make sure you could dribble from the time you were 5, 7, 8, 9 years old. You're probably a head and shoulder length bigger than everybody else at that age. And you're in Indiana. You have no choice. You have to play basketball. It's a
Yes,
birthright, isn't it?
yes, you do. That's all part of Indiana. And it's amazing when I got out of high school, I wasn't offered a basketball scholarship to Indiana University, which wouldn't have mattered anyway because I had already made up my mind where I was going. But I never really had anybody teach me basketball, basic basketball fundamentals until my senior year in high school, where we hired a new coach, and he was a guy by the name of Carl McNulty. He was out of the University of Purdue. He was a third string All American basketball player at Purdue, and he was the primary reason why I got to the NBA. He worked hard with me, but he brought me a little present one day at the gym. It's called a tipping ring. Tipping ring was a ring that fit inside of the regular basketball ring hoop, but the ball could just barely go through that tipping ring, and you had to throw it up there and tip it up there just to an exact spot for the ball to fall through. And so he'd throw it up on the board, and I would be jumping and tipping and tipping and jumping, trying to get that ball to go through that little tipping ring. And that really built up the leg muscles, and that was one,
Yeah.
and feet, ankles,
Yeah.
all the above.
Better rebounder because you were jumping twice where everybody else was jumping once because you knew that if you didn't make the shot, it was going to come back out and you could have an opportunity to score, right?
Yeah, I wasn't a real good shooter in basketball, but I prided myself in rebounding, and I averaged a lot more rebounds per game in high school than I did points, and it was all because of Coach McNulty. But basketball, for some reason, some guys have a sense of where the ball is going to go off the hoop when it's shot and missed, and some guys don't. And I just through Coach McNulty, he kind of taught me angles and things where if a ball is shot at a certain range and certain side of the rim where it's likely to go. And so
Yeah.
I worked hard on trying to remember how the ball is going to react if it's missed. And that was a big plus too in rebounding.
Well, thank you, Carl, for doing that. I know Dennis Rodman had a career in the NBA, being one of the best rebounders. He did exactly what you were saying. He'd watch people shoot and was just observing. And if the guy was missing deep into the left, he knew where to set up for an offensive rebound. Do me a small favor, take me down memory lane. Who are some of the basketball heroes? Because you mentioned Purdue as one of the things. John Wooden came from Purdue. Was there any history that you had of people in the area, whether it be a Hoosier, whether it be a Sycamore, or a Boilermaker, or maybe even someone from the Fighting Irish that you grew up in the basketball world really admiring and were the heroes when you were growing up?
Not really. I wasn't really into watching the NBA at that time, and college basketball games were not televised as much as they are, obviously, as they are now. So I just word of mouth, and you hear of certain guys. And there was one guy at Notre Dame that his name kept popping up, and I learned a lot about him because I got to play against him. Was Tommy Hawkins.
Oh
Hawk
wow.
played with the L.A. Lakers, and I'm sure Bob knows all about Tom Hawkins.
He was the
What a
best
outstanding! I had a chance to meet Hawk and got to be good friends with him, both on and off the court. In fact, after I got out of the NBA and he got out of the NBA, when I was in LA with the Braves, Hawk would come down to the clubhouse and visit with me. So he was one of my probably my biggest idol as far as basketball goes. When I was growing up, I heard a lot about Tom Hawkins at Notre Dame. What a rebounder, what a player, and so he's probably number one on my list.
He could jump like nobody I ever saw. Jump.
He could get up in the air, and his timing was impeccable. I mean, he had the greatest timing, and he was another one of those guys who sort of had that sixth sense, knew where that ball was going to be, and he's still the all-time leading numbers rebounder at Notre Dame.
Wow.
And thanks to him, I still have the Notre Dame record for a single season of averaging 17.7 rebounds a game.
Unbelievable.
So that was all because of watching the Hawk play.
Wow.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your experience there at Notre Dame. How did you get there? What were the keys for you? Baseball's still in the background, right? You can play. You're pretty good at baseball, but obviously basketball being your first love. Tell us
Well,
about
how much time? How much time we got here? I've got a story that basically was a real reason. After my senior year, I got an offer from Notre Dame, but my dad was still trying to push baseball, and my father, during his younger days, got to meet Charlie Finley. Of course, Charlie Finley was the owner of the Kansas City Athletics at that time, but Mr. Finley had a farm outside of LaPorte. And he used to bring the athletics over there for picnics and outings and dinners and whatever. But my dad knew him, and somehow he had arranged a meeting with Charlie Finley for me. So we go out there, and as soon as I got out of high school in June of 1961, we went out to Charlie Finley's farm, and lo and behold, Dad knocks on the door. Who answers the door but Charlie Finley? And I'm standing there going, I mean, I was amazed because I knew he owned the Kansas City A's. So we went in and sat down, and he said, I followed your career a little bit in high school. I know you've turned into a pretty good pitcher. I'd like to sign you with the Kansas City A's. And I can't give you a lot of money as a player, but we'll send you down in Class A. Now, I'm just right out of high school. I was green as grass, obviously, at the time. And I said, okay, thank you, Mr. Finley. By the way, he said, if you sign, I'll give you a nice bonus check. So as we're going on the way home, my dad was saying, well, what'd you think? I said, Dad, I thought that was outstanding, but I made up my mind a couple days ago. I want to go to Notre Dame. There's something about that Golden Dome and that beautiful lady up there on that Golden Dome. It just is. It's gotten into my heart, and I want to go to Notre Dame, and I'm going to play basketball at Notre Dame. And he said, well, you don't get too many chances to sign baseball. I said, I know, I understand that, but I still have made up my mind. So I had a chance to get in baseball early, but I chose to go to Notre Dame for basketball. And as it worked out later on, there's another story connected how I got back into baseball after my Piston days. But anyway, I had a chance early, and I decided not to take it at that time.
Well, you get to Notre Dame, and I think of Digger Phelps and the teams in the 70s. This is before Digger gets there. Talk a little bit about what the basketball environment was like there. Obviously, it's a football-first university, and a great one at that, the education, etc. St. Mary's right across the lake. What was it like for you when you get there on campus and you got to see Touchdown Jesus and the big, beautiful lady there on top of the building? But then you got to go to class. Tell me a little bit about what Notre Dame was like for you.
Well, Notre Dame was a real struggle. When I went there, freshmen were not eligible to play at that time.
Right.
And so, you couldn't play to your sophomore year. So the freshmen would actually we would work out. I'm having trouble in my mouth here. We would have trouble getting. We couldn't play any games, so we practiced every afternoon, and then I was a little bit lax in my studies, and my grades were not real good, but I kept my eligibility, and so I got to play the first semester of my sophomore year as a varsity starter. But then the grades caught up with me, and I flunked out of Notre Dame. And when I went on home, and my dad said, "Oh, that's all right. I understand how tough it is." So he got me a job where he worked at Alice Chalmers, manufacturing farm implements, and Notre Dame let me back in school for summer school, and I went back and I worked a little bit harder and I never got my degree, but I got to play my junior and senior year at Notre Dame. And that education of working in a factory was absolutely huge for me, but I still struggled with grades. There's something about struggling at Notre Dame, and I understand a lot of people do, but you're graded on the curve situation, and nothing but the smartest kids in the country go to the classes at Notre Dame. So I was going against some pretty smart kids and then trying to keep up with them, and I just couldn't do it for a while. But I managed to survive enough to play my last 2 years.
And you played well, right? You played well enough to where the NBA was looking at you. You mentioned Detroit. You get drafted in the '65 draft. But there's also a baseball aspect. Did you play ball at Notre Dame too? Did you get to do both?
No, I
Yeah.
got to I got to play 1 year, my senior year of baseball. Uh, after my senior year, I got drafted by the Pistons at that time, and I think the reason they drafted me was my rebounding ability more than anything else. I wasn't that big of a scorer, but Notre Dame was playing in an old gym, and this gym was so tight that the visiting team would come in there, and if they would try to take the ball out of bounds, the students were so close to them they could pull the hair on their legs and just agitate the fool out of them. And I think that the student body was more helpful in our winning games than we were on the court. But it was no really big names went there with me. A guy by the name of Walt Som, who he graduated from Indianapolis Cathedral High School. He was 6'9", and he was the second rebounder on that team, and he was a pretty good player. But other than that, we kind of struggled, and this is long before Digger got there.
Yeah.
The coach there was Johnny Jordan, and in my senior year, they hired Johnny D out of Alabama, and he coached me for 1 year.
Well, I showed a picture of the Convocation Center, and you're saying that wasn't even built yet. That was after you had already gone. So you're playing in like Cameron Arena there at Duke, really small, really tight, and very advantageous for the home team, right?
In fact, Adolph Rupp came in there, and when Tom Hawkins was there, and Notre Dame beat him, and Adolph said he would never go back to that gym again. He wanted no part of that gymnasium at Notre Dame. Yeah, it was. In fact, they used to have shows in there, and Bob Hope came in and did a show inside of our old gym. And at the end of his show, he said, "Okay, now that I'm finished with my show, you can bring the cattle back in here." So that's about what it looked like. It looked like an old barn rather than a gymnasium at that time. And then the Convocation Center came in, and it really improved Notre Dame basketball by a bunch.
Yeah, yeah. Well, getting a part of that, and who are the rivals for you? Obviously, Purdue. Did you play Indiana back in those days? And did you, were you traveling all over the country? Were you? I know now Notre Dame always had a game against UCLA. Always, they would have a swap every year. They'd mix it up. And early '70s, that rivalry was just fantastic. Gosh, for basketball, Notre Dame was really a hotbed. And just a decade earlier, you're getting a chance to play and be a part of it as well.
Yeah, we never played against UCLA when I was there. Our big two rivalries were probably Indiana and Kentucky.
Okay.
We played them, and I had a chance to play in Freedom Hall in Louisville, Kentucky, against Kentucky University my sophomore year, and they had a guy on that team by the name of Cotton Nash. Cotton
Terrific.
Nash was a big time scorer for Kentucky.
Yep.
He got in the NBA for a little bit, and then he got in the ABA for a little bit, but never went very far in his basketball career. Like I always wondered why he didn't, because he's such a great player. And I remember before the game, they had an interview with Coach Jordan. He was our coach at that time, and Jordan was asked, "Well, Cotton Nash is a pretty big scorer. Uh, who are you going to put on him?" He said, "Well, I got a sophomore kid by the name of Ron Reed out of little old LaPorte, Indiana. And I'm going to stick him on him and see what he can do." I think I held him to 45, and he didn't play much in the fourth quarter.
There you go. Way to stick it to him there, Ron.
So much for my defensive ability.
Hey, Ron, didn't Cotton Nash play first base too?
Yes, he played. He was in baseball for a while, and I don't remember him making to the big leagues. I mean, I think he got to AAA, and he might have got a cup of coffee in the big league level, but I don't remember him playing a lot.
Well, your Notre Dame experience ends up with you getting drafted 65 by the Detroit Pistons. Talk a little bit about that.
All right, I was drafted in the third round by the Pistons in 1965. The first round pick was a guy by the name of Bill Button, a 6'7" center out of the University of Michigan. Second round draft choice was Tom Van Arsdale, one of the Van Arsdale twins out of Indiana.
Yep.
Great guys, great players. And I was a third round draft choice. And when it came down to camp, and they must have had 30 guys in camp. And when they made the final cut, they had to send Bill Button down to some semi-pro league. Button played at 6'7", 230, and he showed up to camp at 6'7", 260.
Oh.
He had gained 30 pounds. So that opened up one more spot, and I happened to manage to get that last spot on the Piston team, only because Button showed up out of shape. Otherwise, I probably would not have made the Piston team. I was close, but the numbers game would have caught up with me.
Wow.
And so I roomed with Tom Van Arsdale for 2 years, playing with the Pistons, and we played with Dave DeBusschere, who was the youngest player coach in the history of the NBA, as far as I know. I think that still stands. And I just had a great time. Tom Van Arsdale ended up like my twin brother, just like his brother Dick. I mean, Tommy and I have been friends for 60 years. And he was very instrumental in keeping me around and helping me out whenever I needed it. And so the team actually had a bunch of really good players on it, but were just a little bit short at center. And my second year, they drafted Dave Bing out of Syracuse, so I got to play with DeBusschere and Dave Bing and the guy by the name of Joe Caldwell out of North Carolina. And those are probably the three.
Jumpin' Joe.
Jumpin' Joe Caldwell, and Ray Scott was our power forward, and he was. I think they called him Chink, old Chink Scott. And you talk about a close knit team. That team that we were on with Eddie Miles, man with the golden arm out of Seattle. I'm sure Bob knows all these names, and they're just a good bunch of guys, and we just a little bit lacking in overall ability to challenge teams like the Lakers and, of course, Mr. Russell and the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything. I really enjoyed playing, but I was just about a step too slow and not quite a good enough shooter to hang around very long.
But think about this. I was just thinking about this when you talked about Dave DeBusschere. I bet you, now this is a good trivia quiz. In the history of the NBA, you had two guys that became major league players on the same team in basketball. Now, I don't think that's ever been done. DeBusschere and you both were major league pitchers. Isn't that amazing? On the same basketball team.
Yeah, Dave, first love was baseball, I think. I mean, he was a great scorer at the University of Detroit, but I think his first love was baseball, and he was just a little bit short of being a big-time major league pitcher. Of course, he had the great basketball ability, but the only guy that really played two sports for a long time, played both of them, was Gene Conley, a name that was mentioned earlier. Conley played like 7 or 8 years in baseball, or I remember, 7 8 years with the Celtics, and probably another 8 or 9 years or 10 years with the old Boston Braves. And he's the only one that had a lot longevity. All the other two sport athletes were like me. They maybe had one, but the other one they only played a year or two and concentrated on just one.
Gene Conley, a little trivia, is the only player in history to win a world championship in the NBA and Major League Baseball. In other words, he won world championships in two sports.
I did not know that he had won one in baseball. I knew he won one in basketball.
Braves, 57 Milwaukee Braves.
Oh, that's right. He was with Milwaukee. That's right. Oh my gosh, I had forgotten about that. But yeah, he must have been some kind of an athlete because he played a long time. Of course, the seasons didn't overlap as much as they do now, so he was able to get both of them in.
Well, your NBA career, as you said, I'm a step slow and maybe an inch too short. You are with Charlie Scott, as you mentioned, and Dave DeBusschere, who obviously went on to be a world champion with the Knicks in the early 70s, just a few years later. Tell us a little bit about what happened where baseball, you said you didn't play at Notre Dame, but you played in high school. So you've been out of baseball for a while.
1 year. He played a senior year at Notre Dame.
Well, you hadn't played a lot, but then you pick it up again, and oh yeah, I can throw 92 or whatever it is. Were you a good hitter as well, Ron? Were you one of those guys that you could put me anywhere, but I like being on the mound? What was that like for you in terms of where you found your home?
Well, I was always on the mound. In high school, when I wasn't pitching, of course, I played other positions, but the problem was, when I got into basketball, baseball started a baseball draft in 1965, I think it was. And kids that before then were signed as free agents. But then they put in the draft like the NFL, and I was not drafted by anybody. And even Mr. Finley gave up on me, I'm sure, by then. And I went to Detroit to sign my contract with the Pistons, and the general manager in Detroit was asking me what I was going to do that summer. And I said, I'd like to play some little baseball and get back into baseball, but I wasn't drafted by anybody. And he looked at me and says, well, wait a minute. And he gets on the phone and he calls a guy by the name of John McHale. John McHale was the general manager of the then Milwaukee Braves, of all places. But John McHale was also a graduate of Notre Dame. And the general manager of the Pistons said, I've got a young man here we're signing for basketball, but he said, he'd like to play baseball. Do you have any openings for him? And McHale said, what position does he play? Said, he plays, he's a pitcher. And McHale said, well, I've got 3 pitchers in Class A ball that came down with sore arms. Tell him I'll send him to West Palm Beach in Class A ball this summer and give him $500 a month. And I said, I'll take it. And that's how I got into baseball, only because of John McHale and only because the Piston general manager called him and got me into baseball. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have ever gotten back into baseball or not. I probably would have stayed with basketball. And then so I played Class A ball with the Braves in West Palm Beach, Florida that summer. And then they invited me to spring training the following year. So after my basketball season with the Pistons, I went to spring training, of all places, Waycross, Georgia. Now, I've never been south of the Mason-Dixon line, but when I got off that plane in Waycross, I thought this must be the end of the world. And so I've never seen anything like this. The ballpark was three fields, and we stayed in Army barracks. And I'm going, I don't know if I want to do this. And we break camp, and they send me to Kinston, North Carolina, Class A ball. I was there for 6 weeks. They moved me to Double A in Austin, Texas. I was there for another 5 or 6 weeks. They moved me to AAA in Richmond, Virginia. And then at the end of the year, they called me up to the big leagues, and I got my first start in Major League Baseball in 1967, or in 1966 with the Braves in Atlanta Fulton County Stadium against Juan Marichal and the San Francisco Giants. And the third batter I faced in my big league career was Willie Mays.
How about that? Wow.
And I went from Waycross, Georgia to Atlanta, Georgia, all in 1 year, and got a start in the big leagues against probably one of the top three players that ever play in the history of baseball. And they kind of bombed me out about this, I don't know, second or third inning. I was gone. Willie McCovey took me over the right center field fence. And the third guy I faced was Willie Mays, and I got him out. And I thought, man, I'm in the big leagues, babe. I might be able to stay here. And then McCovey took me over the center field or left center field fence. I said, well, maybe I better work a little bit harder at what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
But in 1 year, I actually went from Class A to the big leagues, and just after that, they had me come in for baseball spring training in West Palm Beach, Florida, in 1967, and they sent me to AAA, and I spent the year in AAA and had a pretty good year. Won 14 games. We won the International League Championship, and a guy by the name of Jim Britton, he was the other right-hander on the team. He won like 12 or 13 games. So I got a taste of big time baseball, and then the following year I made it to the big leagues.
Hey, how big were the bugs in Waycross? I just want to know if they were as big as your fist or were they bigger?
I'm sorry. How big was what?
How big are the bugs in Waycross, Georgia? Come on now.
I wasn't worried about the bugs, but I noticed that the barracks were built up off the ground like 2 feet or 2 or 3 feet.
You had some
And I'm going,
gators?
these are old Army barracks. Why in the heck did they build them up off the ground? I said, because that night they didn't want the rattlesnakes to get into the barracks, so they built them up off the ground so the snakes would stay underneath the building.
There you go. Nothing
Yeah,
like
that'll get your
safety
attention
first.
real quick.
Yeah, safety first is really important for you.
Yeah.
Well, your speed of getting to the big leagues, obviously, it's your arm strength. What did you have? What was the gift that you got when you were playing and waiting for your dad to get home and you had 2 gloves that were sitting on the porch? You had a beat up old ball. What was your strength that you had, Ron? You get an opportunity to play in a single A club with a connection with Notre Dame because everyone ran out of arms. And you had a healthy arm, and you had a little bit of zip in you. Was it your curveball? Was it I can deliver a fastball, I can focus, and I can throw strikes. I can hit the inside corner. What was the specialty that made the secret sauce for you work so well?
Well, there were 2 things. My dad taught me a little bit about a curveball. I could throw a curveball. Wasn't real good, but at least it did break a little bit.
Yeah.
But he said I had a certain way of when I threw the ball, it had movement on it. And he used to give me targets all the time. He insisted on hitting that target. And I think the combination of my delivery was a little bit different, he said, but the movement of the ball was the key, and my control. And he said I could hit the target that he would put up with a lot, pretty regularly. And he said, there's something about that ball movement. I think you need to stay with it. And I think, like I say, those are the 2 biggest things. And probably the thing that helped me more than anything else is my work habits. I developed some really good work habits, which he insisted on. And I think that was the third thing that really helped me get through all my sports, not just basketball and baseball, but anything I tried after that. I managed to have good movement with my feet, my legs, and arm strength was a natural. I never did anything to lift weights or anything like that to make it stronger. It was just one of those gifts that the good Lord gave me, that I had a good arm, and it just lasted a long time.
Well, and you're also very fortunate that you're playing with a really good organization, or at least, the teams Bob has mentioned earlier, you're playoff ready. You got some experience of playing some pretty serious ball. Talk about the importance of, hey, I better be good and stay good because this team is good and I want to play here. I want to stay here.
That, and there was a lot of reasons I liked Atlanta. I really fell in love with the city, and the players on the team were just class A people. But probably the biggest thing was I got to sit there for my first 6 years with the Braves and watch Henry Aaron play every day. And what a treat that was, just watching this man perform day after day after day, and what he did to get himself in shape. And he just had such natural mobility, but his biggest thing was he had great hand-eye coordination, number one, but his work habits were impeccable. I mean, and just watching him play, and then of course I got to play with Bob and our buddy Daryl Evans. I'm having, what the heck's going on here? I'm having trouble speaking here for some reason. I'm just trying to get all my thoughts together. Anyway, but Daryl Evans, Orlando Cepeda, we had some good guys. Rico Cardi, great hitter in the outfield, and I got to play with and watch old Nuxie, Phil Necro. And Nuxie and I became best of friends for 55 years. And he tried so hard to teach me how to throw that knuckleball. And I told him only a Pollock like him could throw a knuckleball like that. He just, I mean, it was just amazing how that ball could come in out of his hand and not even turn over a hair. Just no spin on it whatsoever.
Nothing.
And watching big league hitters, fall down trying to hit the darn thing. They just couldn't do it. Just the people I played with the Atlanta Braves were just quality people.
All class people. I mean, they're all class. I mean, Hank Aaron was humble. He never acted like a superstar. I never saw Hank Aaron big league anybody. I never saw him act like a jerk. And all those guys. Necro. Can I tell you one Phil Necro story? Do I have time to tell you one?
Mm-hmm.
Phil Necro and I had lunch in San Diego. They're staying at the Town and Country Hotel, and this will tell you about Phil Necro. We come back from having lunch, and there's a kid about 14 years old with a 3-ring binder, and he asks Phil, "Mr. Necro, would you sign my bubblegum card?" And Phil said, "Sure, kid." And he signed the card, and he looked in the binder, and the whole binder was filled with Phil Necro bubblegum cards, like those plastic sheets.
Yeah, I've heard those.
And Phil says, "Son, you have all my bubblegum cards." And the kid said, "Mr. Necro, you're my favorite player." And Phil said, now I couldn't believe this. He said, "Son, would you like me to sign them all?" And the kid said, "What? I only want, you would?" Phil sat down, may God strike me dead, took out each card out of those plastic things, signed it with a Sharpie, blew it so it wouldn't, put it back in. He must have spent 20 minutes and that kid, I guarantee you to this day, he still has those cards. I mean, that is Phil Necro. Nobody else saw it. There was nobody in the hotel, just me and Phil and the kid. But I never forgot that, how nice he was to everybody,
Yep, that was Phil Necro. I've never met anybody that knew Phil that ever said anything bad about him.
No.
I mean, nobody.
No.
Of course, there's I have to say some of the hitters had a few choice words for him.
Yeah, they did. You bet they did.
But I've never heard anybody ever say anything bad about Nuxie. He's just one quality human being, and I loved him like a brother, and we were friends for, like I say, 55 years.
Well, I still play in his golf tournament every year. I got invited many years ago, and his grandson played or practiced on his travel ball team in the same park where my son was playing, my middle son, Joshua. And I grabbed my son one day. I go, "You just come along with me and you just say yes, sir, and no, sir. Do you understand?" He goes, "Yes, sir." And I go, "All right, come on." And I go, "Son, I want you to meet Phil Necro." And Phil didn't know me from a hole in the wall, but we had met a few years earlier and when I was with the Falcons. And he spent 20 minutes showing the grip, how to do it, just like he did with you, Ron. Here's how you let go of that ball.
Yeah.
He showed my son how to throw a knuckleball, and was just as kind as could be. You know, we're a little bit lesser because he's no longer with us, but what a tremendous man. And thank you for spending as much time honoring him the way that you did. A good friend for the league and obviously for you, Ron. Appreciate it, and obviously Bob, the same. We also mentioned Henry. If you don't mind, you're a part of one of the great days in baseball history. The day that Henry hit that 715th in Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. Who finished that ball game, Ron? Who ended up getting the win there?
Yeah, I started that game against Al Downing, and I got behind early like I normally did in Atlanta. And Henry's home run tied the score at 3-3, and then we scored another run, and then we scored another run, and I got a little bit in trouble after 6 innings, so they took me out and brought in Buzz Capra. And Buzz Capra came in against the Dodgers and struck out. He faced 9 hitters. I think he struck out 6 of them and got the save. And I ended up getting the win for that game, which was historic game. And I told Hank, I said, you know what? I'm sure I'll never make it to the Hall of Fame, but my name is there because that box score is in his cubbyhole at the Hall of Fame. And at the very bottom, it says WP, winning pitcher, R. Reed. So my name is in the Hall of Fame because of Hank Aaron, and I love it. I love it.
It's so cool. And it's just amazing, isn't it? I mean, right place, right time. I mean, we've had Joe Ferguson on. He's in this picture. Dusty is on deck. He's in this picture. He's been on with us as well. Just the significance of that. And then you were the starting pitcher against Al Downing. I mean, come on, Ron. This is some of the most important baseball history.
It's one of the biggest games in the history of baseball. Definitely one of the biggest games in baseball history. The world stopped. Everybody was watching. It's one of those things. I can tell you where I was when Hank hit 7-15. You know.
Well, the biggest thing about the whole deal was that he finished the year before with 713.
Yeah.
And of course, he lived here in Atlanta, and he used to get all kinds of hate mail all winter long. He get hate mail here. Here's a black man going to break a white icon record, and there's a lot of people in the South. In fact, there were people all over the country who couldn't handle that, and Hank it never really bothered him that much. He had a job to do, and everybody's wondering when he's going to tie the record and when he's going to break the record. And opening day in Cincinnati in 1974, Hank, in the first at bat, after all winter getting all his hate mail, all the pressure that's on this man's shoulders, first at bat against Jack Bellingham in Cincinnati, hit a home run for number 714. Now, the Braves wanted to take him out of the lineup. That was a Friday game on Saturday and Sunday because they wanted him to break the record here in Atlanta. And Bowie Kuhn, the commissioner of baseball, said, no, the people in Cincinnati paid their money to see Hank Aaron play, and you will play him. So they were kind of forced to put him in there, and as it worked out, he didn't hit the home run either of those two games. And then on Tuesday night, April 4th, 1974, I'm scheduled to pitch, and Hank came in and hit the home run. But to me, the 714 was the big one because he just had, like I say, a whole winter of pressure put on him, and it really bothered him. First at bat, he hits a home run. So that really tells me what kind of a human being Hank Aaron was. He was just a special man, and he had a lot of ability, obviously, but he was very special man off the field too. And I'm so happy to be a friend of his for many years, and I'm really happy he broke that record, and I'm really glad I was on the mound that night to be part of it.
Well,
Billy Acree, your equipment guy, Billy Acree, showed me the hate mail one time in a big box. A lot of it, he had it in a big box. I could not believe what they were saying. I couldn't believe it. And, it was just unbelievable. And he never let it bother him. I've always told people Jackie Robinson gets all the credit for breaking the color line and everything. I've always said what Hank Aaron did was nobody was threatening Jackie's life. No,
Huh.
Jackie didn't have to have his kids sent to school by private police and FBI because they were threatening to kill his kids. Hank had all that pressure on him, and he handled it with dignity and class. You know, the whole thing. And Ron, I think that's so tremendous that you were the winning pitcher in that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. There's a little sidelight to that too that made it a little bit more exciting. Of course, with all those death threats, rumor was flying around that the FBI got involved, and they had a couple of people with rifles on the roof of that game, just in case somebody would, maybe try to harm Hank in any way. Now Hank hits a home run, and what happens? Those two dummies jump out of the stands and run out there to congratulate him around second base. And I'm going, man, if there's a rifleman up there, they may shoot those guys. As it worked out, there were no riflemen there, but the rumor was that there were. And these guys are running out there, and it looked like they were attacking him at first, and then no, they weren't attacking him. They were just wanted to congratulate him. Of course, they spent a couple of nights in Atlanta jail over that move, but thank goodness there wasn't a rifleman, because they might have shot one of those poor guys.
Yeah, that's an interesting scenario. Hank himself said when he rounded second that he felt somebody's hand on his back, and he thought, "I'm done, I'm a goner." But they wanted to congratulate him.
Yeah, that's all right. Of course, they knew nothing about all the pressure that Hank was under, for the whole winter before. So they knew nothing about that. So that didn't faze them, obviously. But it's kind of funny and ironic now that you think about it. If true, like I said, they could have run into a little problem out there.
Yeah.
Well, and Ron, my friend Tony Koki, who hooked me up with you, he said to ask Ron. The crowd for that game was 56,700 and something, sold out. He said, ask Ron what the crowd was like after the home run.
Well, I really don't even know, because I was so excited. I ran out to the home plate waiting for him like everybody else, and I ended up behind Hank when he crossed home plate, and I'm beating him on top of the head. Hit him a couple times on top of the head, and then on the shoulders for out of the way, Hank, out of the way. I'm cheering my britches off, but the people were anxious to see him hit that home run. I mean, the fans here in the South were really behind him, in anywhere in the state of Georgia. He was huge.
Yeah.
And I didn't know there was 56,000 people there, but I knew there was a whole bunch of them.
Well, the celebration, the picture that I have up here, Ron, now, you can't see the top of the stadium. I've been in Fulton County, and I don't know. I don't see any snipers, so I guess maybe there wasn't one there.
No,
thank goodness there wasn't. But the celebration itself, and then there's still a game to play, right? You still got to go back out on the mound. You want a game to win. You want to get in the Hall of Fame, don't you?
yeah, I didn't know that back box score was going to go to the Hall of Fame, but yeah, I wanted to get back out there, but it was like a shot of adrenaline going on. When Hank hit that home run, I couldn't wait to get back on that mound, because I wanted to win that game real bad. I wanted to, and I struggled. The Dodgers were hitting me pretty good all over the park, and I struggled a little bit, but I managed to hang on. And then Buzz Capper did one heck of a job getting that save in that game.
Hey, do me a favor. Tom House catches that ball. Bill Buckner climbs up the fence and tries everything he can to keep it in. In other words, I don't want Hank to hit the home run against us. He can hit it against somebody else, but I don't want to be forever known as the team that gave up the home run. But Tom House catches it, and Tom has become the quarterback whisperer, obviously. But Hank has that ball in his hand in no time. Any relation with Tom in regarding to, hey man, nice catch? You kind of knew where he was going to hit it, and he hit it right to you.
Well, I found out after the fact that all the relievers for the Braves lined up about 10, 15 feet apart back there.
Okay.
And they all had the agreement was if the ball was hit toward them, they couldn't all just jump together and try to fight over the ball. That wherever the ball ended up, that's the person who was going to catch it. And as it worked out, it was hit directly at Tom House. And he literally sprinted from left field to home plate to make sure Hank got that ball.
Wow.
And I can't remember who was that. Who was out in left field? They leaned
Bill
over the
Buckner.
fence and tried. Huh?
It was Bill Buckner.
It
Yeah.
was Buckner leaning over the fence. He wanted. He kept screaming at poor Housey. Hey, I want that ball. Give me that ball. And House said, no chance. You're going to get this ball.
None.
Going to Hank. Of course, a lot of people tried to buy that ball at that particular time. In fact, Sammy Davis Jr. was there and offered him a big time check for the ball, and now they wanted that ball to go to Hall of Fame, which rightfully that's where it should go.
Yeah. Well, Bob knows Sammy. I think Sammy was having some difficulty paying his bills at the Sands Hotel or wherever he was staying. He wasn't a very good gambler. Let me just put it that way. But again, a part of the amazing baseball history. Thank you for that, for being a part of it. And another year you're in Atlanta. Finish up with your Braves career. I mean, you were there for 10 years.
I was there in Atlanta for just part of '66. In September of '66 and September of '67. And then my first full year was '68, and I got traded in '75. So I had 7 full years in Atlanta and parts of 2 others. And then I got traded to St. Louis and with the Cardinals, and spent the rest of '75 with the Cardinals. And then after I got traded, at the end of the year, I got traded to Philadelphia and spent 8 years in Philadelphia. But I had 7 years in Atlanta, and the only really good year we had was, of course, '69 against the Miracle Mets, and the rest of the time, I ended up with a broken collar. I broke my collarbone running a sprint in spring training in 1970, and missed about half that year. And then Bobby Tolan hit a line drive off of me and hit my right hand on the mound in '73, so I missed a lot of that year. So I missed a couple of like almost a full year because of injuries. But overall, the rest of the time I was one of the steady. I was out there on the mound all the time in my regular rotation.
I think it's amazing. 19 years as a pitcher. That's not very often done. I'll tell you that. Especially a guy that, Nuxie had a knuckleball. That's why these guys. But you were primarily a fastball pitcher in the last 19 years. It's amazing.
Well, I kind of describe myself as sneaky. I tried to sneak balls in certain places. I wasn't going to blow anybody away up there, and I just. My dad was right. I had a little bit of movement, just enough to get the fat part of the bat off the ball and maybe get on the handle or on the end of the bat. But it was a struggle because not too many people realize, but Atlanta Fulton County Stadium was the highest ballpark in all of Major League Baseball at that time.
Yep.
All the other teams were either on the coast or around the Great Lakes, except maybe St. Louis was along the Mississippi River, which was, no high altitude at all. Atlanta was like 6,000 feet, so that ball really jumped in Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. I think Nuxie and I one year gave up over 50 home runs between us. Yeah, I know I gave up like 26 or 27, and I think he gave up 30 or something. But that ball really jumped out of Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, and it was tough to keep it in there. But I managed to hang on long enough to get 7 years with the Braves and enjoyed being here in Atlanta with them.
I think if I remember correctly, Vin Scully began the broadcast for that Dodger game with we're at the launching pad here, not Houston. No, it was home runs came out of Fulton County until the humidity started to kick in and kind of weighed the ball down a little bit.
Yeah.
You go to '76, you go to Philadelphia. So one, I want to ask you about being in the city of Philadelphia, the brotherly love part. Now get over that. It's a tough crowd, but during our bicentennial, and then obviously I've got a picture here of you, the Wall of Fame that they have, but that '80 season. Let's start first of just making a new home. Were you married at that time? And was it an easy move for you from Atlanta to St. Louis to Philadelphia?
Well, yeah, Julie and I got married in January of 1971, and we were married at the time and bought a house here. which we still live in, by the way. And
Wow.
we decided that we weren't going to go buy a house all the places I get traded to. There's no way I could do that. So we just kept home base here, and Julie would stay here with the kids in spring and for school, and then in the summertime they would all join me. We would rent a house, and so that made it a lot easier. We didn't have to worry about buying and selling houses along the way. We just kept the house here.
Wait a second, Ron. You mean you didn't have multi-million-dollar contracts like back in the day? Come on, what are you making, 16,000 a year your first couple years in the league? Wasn't it amazing how much different it is than the way it is now?
Oh, you missed out on my big money. I made tons of money in Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah, my contract when I negotiated it, GM said, "Okay, the minimum salary is $7,500 a year, but you're our third round draft choice. We'll give you $8,500." My first year was $8,500, and then baseball, the Braves gave me a 2-year, $25,000 contract to quit basketball, and 5 of it was bonus and 20 of it was salary for 1967 and 1968. And then in '69, they gave me a little bit of a raise because I won 18 games. But let's see, it was my 5th year in Atlanta. I was making $46,000 and had won 18 games in 1 year.
Yeah.
If I would win 18 games nowadays and have 5 years with the same team, I shudder to think what my salary would be.
Oh, yeah.
It just, the money they're making, and I keep saying this over and over, but I just wonder how many players nowadays know the name of Marvin Miller. Marvin was our guy that negotiated all this stuff. He wanted free agency established, but he wanted a pension established. And he really took care of the players. And he's the real reason why they're making the money they're making right now. And I think of Marvin all the time. I think, without him, I wouldn't have made nearly as much money as I made in baseball. But it can't compare with the money the guys are making nowadays. And my lovely wife, we talk about it every once in a while. By the way, we've been married for 55 years. And I don't know what I'd do without her, but she's been my rock all the way through since 1971. So, and I said, "Sweetheart, I'm sorry I was born a little too early." She said, "Well, I'm glad you didn't, because I wouldn't have met you then." I said, "Okay, you're right. You wouldn't have."
Hey, Ron, was she from it? Was Julie from Atlanta? Where'd you meet her?
Julie was working in Atlanta as an airline stewardess for Delta.
Oh, okay.
And she was born and raised here in Georgia. A place called Kingsland, Georgia, which is way down on the state line, just north of Jacksonville, Florida, just across the state line. And she was working here, and I was living with a good friend of mine. He and I had an apartment, and we had a party one night, and she showed up with a date. And the minute I saw her, I said, "You know what? That's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life."
That's what the
So after the party, I didn't care about the guy. I could care less. I went up to her. I said, "We gotta have a date. Can I take you out?" And I about fell down when she said yes. So the rest is history. It turned into a 55-year love affair, and like I say, I shudder to think what I'd do without her.
Well, congratulations on 55, and then 55 more, and all of that. You mentioned the money, and I don't want to go into the money necessarily, but the change. You played in 1980. You were with the Phillies for a couple of years. Your team is getting really, really good. Manny Trio, Larry Boa, Lazinski, Maddox. You got Bake McBride, if I'm not mistaken, at one point. A guy named Mike Schmidt. Are you kidding me?
Not a bad player.
And then Bob Boone and some other, and then when Pete joins you, he's one of the first guys after he leaves Cincinnati to make $1 million a year. Was that a lot of money for you back in those days? I mean, to think about what the ramifications were, and then in 1980 you end up winning it all.
Yeah, the thing that Pete brought with him, obviously, was his ability to hit the ball. I mean, great hitter, just a great hitter. But he taught us how to win. it was an attitude thing. Some guys he thought was kind of going through the motions a little bit too much. He wanted a little bit more attitude out there. Nobody had an attitude on the field that could match Pete's. I used to hate him with the Reds. He used to scream at me and holler at me and just try to intimidate the fool out of everybody. And he was just a big time gamer. And then he comes over to our team, and he turned that team around mentally, and not just winning games, but mentally. He turned that whole team around. And of course, we had a kind of an ace on the mound by the name of Steve Carlton. He wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
And then Tugger and I, we were the two short men in the bullpen, and it was just a team that just all gelled together at the same time. We won our division in 76, 77, and 78 and lost all three playoffs. And then all of a sudden now, 80, we get in the playoff with Houston, and it goes 5 games, and all 5 games were determined by 1 run. And it was the most, oh my gosh, pressure-packed series I've ever been in. And luckily, we ended up winning that to get in the World Series. But that team that we had through the 76, 77, 78 season, we probably underachieved. I think we should have been in another World Series or possibly 2 more. But we just came up a little short in the playoffs all the time.
Ron, didn't you save a game in the World Series?
I saved game number 2. For Steve Carlton started game number 2, and I came in and saved that game for him. I pitched the 9th inning.
Wow, unbelievable!
Yeah, it was great, and in front of the Philly fans who they would cheer for you when you were doing well, but they would let you know if you were having a bad time. And they sort of reminded me of I better go work on my game a little bit more to keep these people happy. And they're great fans. I mean, just absolutely fantastic fans. And they got behind us when we were making that pennant run, and that World Series, you couldn't have gotten another body in that ballpark. It was so packed. And just going out there on the mound, knowing that I'm in a World Series is just, there's a feeling nothing like it. That's the ultimate. And then end up getting that save, and teammates jumping up and down, and screaming, hollering, beating on your back, and I loved it. It was totally awesome.
Hey, Ron, do you wear your World Series ring at all or not?
I wear my World Series ring just about every day. I said, you know what? I'm not bragging. I'm just proud because I earned it. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears in that ring, and I'm going to wear it. And I do. I wear it on my right hand and a wedding band on the left hand, and I wear them every day.
That's great.
Well, it was a great series, and some of the other guys that you were with, Tug McGraw was the one on the mound there at the very end when you guys actually won it. I had a picture of him with Schmidt just a few minutes ago, but a good pitching staff too. And you were a real pinnacle part of that, weren't you, Ron?
Well, when I came over from St. Louis, Danny Ozark was the manager in spring training. I was really excited going to the Phillies because I knew they were an up and coming team. They had some great young players like Schmidt and Bull and Larry Boa, and this Dave Cash was the second baseman at the time, and we had a really good team. And I wanted to be the 5th starter on that team. They had 4 starters, and I knew that they needed 1 more. But halfway through spring training, Ozark comes up to me and says, "About Ron, by the way, we decided we're going to move you to the bullpen." And I said, "You're going to do what?" He said, "We're going to move you to the bullpen." I said, "Trade me. I want out of here right now." I said, I'm not a relief pitcher. I know nothing about being a reliever. I said, I want to be a starter, and that's my game. And he said, "No, let's think about this for a while." And then Paul Owens, the general manager, heard about it, and he came over and said, "Ron, I'll tell you what, try it. And if you don't like it at the All-Star break, we'll trade you. And if you like it, I'll give you a little bonus check." I said, "Well, okay, if that's what I got to do." And they were using me as long man, short man. In fact, one game I even had to start because pitcher came down the last minute with a sore arm, and I had to start a game. And they were using me in all kinds of situations. I wasn't a short man. I wasn't a long man. I was a combination of all of the above. And Ozark got so much confidence in me that I was. When we got in a tight situation, he'd throw me in there, and then later on, Tug was always the short man, and they would use me all the way to finish the game or bring Tug in. And Tug was special. I mean, he wasn't going to blow anybody away, but that little screwball he threw up there, the hitters really had trouble trying to hit it. And his second half of the 1980 season, he got hurt and missed the whole first half of the season. But the second half of the season, every game he was put in, he got them out. I mean, I think he only gave up 2 runs the whole second half of the year. But he and I ended up mostly the short men, even though early on that we had Gene Garber as the official short man with Tug. But they used me a lot, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the season, Ozark comes. I mean, Danny says, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing okay." And Paul Owen says, "You want to stay?" I said, "You darn right, I want to stay. I want to stay with this team." And I've developed a liking of being a relief pitcher. So I'll be darned. As it worked out, I was happy in that bullpen for 8 years.
That's great. Who is that? I see Tug. That's Ron on the right. Who are the two on the left?
The little guy is Gene Garber.
Oh yeah.
And the other guy is Warren Brewster.
Warren Brewster. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Brewman came in that bullpen, and I'll tell you what, he was very effective. He was used mostly as a long man to get out of trouble early on in the game.
Yeah.
And of course, Gino was an official closer with Tug, and I was used all over the place. But yeah, that's Gino, and Garber had some good years in Philadelphia, but he had some really great years with the Braves when he got traded over there back to Atlanta.
Do me a favor, Ron. Talk a little bit about the strategy, the way it's changed in baseball right now. You got a starter going into the 5th inning. If he gets through it, that's it. He's done. It doesn't matter if he's got good stuff or not. Back in those days, especially with Lefty and some of the others, you're going 7th, 8th, 9th inning, in some cases throwing complete games. So there were some days where you had to be ready and you wouldn't go in because your starter is throwing a complete game. Today, it's a little bit different. Your bullpens are constantly being barraged. What was it like from I got to get up and get ready to go standpoint, knowing full well that the strategy and the way that baseball pitching was back in those days was completely different?
Well, two things come to mind. I want to see the manager to walk out to the mound and say, "Hey, Mr. Gibson, you just threw your 68th pitch, so we're going to take you out and bring in a reliever." I said, wait a minute. I've got a no-hitter going. Red Shandy's coming out and telling Gibby that. And I'm going, I don't think there's a manager alive who would survive something like that, going up to that, or Lefty, either one of those two. Yeah, it's changed a lot. I had 55 complete games as a starter. Wow. And I don't think there's any staff in baseball in the last 5-10 years that have 55 complete games as a staff. They just use the bullpen a lot more now than they used to. We were geared to go 9 back in my day. Nowadays they're geared to go 6 or 7, but they're also geared to throw as hard as they can throw. To me, they're more throwers than pitchers, a lot of them.
Yep.
And the days of the Greg Maddux and Tommy Glavine and even Smoltz, those guys were pitchers. I mean, they moved the ball around, jammed hitters. I mean, they weren't going to get 20 strikeouts or 15 strikeouts a game, but they were going to get people out. Nowadays, it seems like they're looking for those guys that throw 100 miles an hour, whether their arms hold up or not.
You know what the great Warren Spahn told me on 100 times over his 5th Heineken beer? He would always say, "Bobby, the art of pitching is keeping the hitter off balance. It is not how hard you throw. The art of pitching is keeping the hitter." That's Warren Spahn. And he was right. It's not, you can throw 100 miles an hour and major league hitters are going to catch up to you. But
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Even the hitters in my day would catch up to somebody. Nolan Ryan really wasn't that big of a winner throwing just fastballs, but when he developed that curveball,
Yep.
that changed his whole game completely.
Yeah.
And I was always told the art of pitching is to keep the fat part of the bat off the ball. If you can get it on the hands or you get it out there on the end of the bat, then you got a chance to get the hitters out. But if they consistently hit the ball with the fat part of the bat, you're not going to be around very long. And that's basically what it is. I mean, I really enjoyed watching for years Smoltz, Tom Glavine, and Greg Maddux pitch. I really did. Those guys could work those corners. I mean, it was just amazing how good those guys were. And Smoltz could blow them away if he had to, but he was a pitcher, and to me that was big league baseball. These guys come in throwing 100 miles an hour, and it maybe lasts 3 or 4 years, if that long, without an injury. Most of them have injuries early on.
Half these guys have had Tommy John surgeries too before they even signed their contracts.
Isn't it unbelievable? I mean, stop and think about that. I think the scouts don't ask, can you get hitters out? How hard do you throw?
That's right.
Who cares? I can get people out. I mean, I was told, hey, you're a junk ball pitcher. Well, I might be a junk ball pitcher, but I've learned a little bit about pitching, and then I can move the ball around inside out, hit corners. And I said, I thank God I'm able to do that. But a lot of these guys just rear back and bring it. They're not going to last too long.
You're right.
There's no way.
Well, speaking of hitters, I got this 6'6" guy right up here now. You didn't get to hit a whole heck of a lot, did you? Especially when you're coming out of the bullpen. But what was your strength there at the plate? Did it only take 3 pitches to get you out, or were you a guy that, hey, I'm going to ground out? I'm going to work a guy. What was that like for you?
Wait a minute, you came up early on saying in high school I was learning fundamentals of base running. I never had to use the fundamentals of base running in my career. That was not a problem. But one thing I really prided myself on was sacrifice bunts.
Yeah.
I mean, back in my day, I was called a lot of times, and I got to be I'm going to pat myself on the back. I'm a good bunter. Okay. I'm not a hitter. Never have been. Never will be. I never hit a home run in the big leagues. My only claim to fame in the big leagues, as far as hitting it goes, is, believe it or not, this is God's truth, I hit a triple off Nolan Ryan.
No way. Come on.
Not too many people can say they hit a triple off Nolan Ryan, but I hit a triple off Nolan Ryan in Shea Stadium. Outfield always played me way in. They didn't play me very deep at all. And I managed to run into one of his fastballs and hit it right center, short hop the right center field wall, and ended up on third base. So that's the highlight. I think I ended up with 98 or 99 big league hits in 17 years. That's not real good hitting, but I could bunt. There's no way. One year I never missed a sacrifice.
Wow.
I had like 14 for 14 or something like that.
When you stand on third base, did Nolan stare you down as if to go, next time you're at the plate, you're going down. You're no.
Are you kidding me? I didn't dare look at him after that.
No, you didn't. No.
I wasn't going to look at him after that. There's no way I was looking at any place but at him. No, I'm not going to give him a reason next time I try to go up there and try to bunt off of him that I get one between the eyes. No, I'm not going to do that. No way.
That one going to go right in your teeth. My goodness. One thing I noticed about you, Ron. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You go ahead. Finish up.
No, I was going to say I'm just not one of those that's going to be bragging on anything. I get somebody out, I'm not going to be jumping up and down or all that sort of thing. Or if I get a hit, I'm not going to be flipping the bat up in the air and running down to first base. Back in my day, if you got a home run or a hit and you flip the bat up in the air, next time you're on the mound, or next time you come to bat, your butt's going to be in the dirt at home plate.
Yeah, you're
Speaking
gonna
of that, did you ever face Don Drysdale in your career run as a pitcher?
Ever face who?
Don Drysdale.
I pitched against Drysdale in
You
Atlanta.
did? Wow.
I think it was probably 68. It had to be 68.
Yeah.
I have no idea if I won the game or he did. But
Well, you
I
got
did
to
bet off him, and I have no idea. I can't remember who won, who lost, and I'm sure I didn't get a hit. I probably never even hit a foul ball off him.
Yeah.
But I did pitch against Drysdale. Yeah,
Yeah.
I never got to see Sandy Koufax pitch.
No.
He retired before in '66, and I never. The month I was up, we didn't face Koufax.
Well, one of the things I noticed about you, Ron, is that your form,
Oh, look at that form.
the
Beautiful.
stride, everything that you had. I mean, you really took care of your arm because your legs. At 6'6", you were all legs. I'm sure there were a few guys that went against you that said, yeah, the ball, when it was coming out of Ron's hand, it was about 4 or 5 inches away from the plate, right? They say the same thing about Randy Johnson every now and then. A left-handed hitter going against that guy, they said I had about maybe 1/10 of the amount of time that anybody else would have.
Or J.R. Richards. Remember J.R. Richards? Same thing, they said.
I really and truly believe that was a big help. I got long arms, long legs, and I learned how to throw way out in front of my body, so I was probably 5 or 6 feet closer to home plate than 60 feet.
Yeah.
But I can tell you a few teams that didn't seem to bother them too much, like the Dadgum Lumber Company in Pittsburgh, the Big Red Machine in Cincinnati, or catching the Cubs in Wrigley Field with the wind blowing out.
Oh boy.
That'll send your ERA up real quick.
Yeah. Well, you finished in '83 with the Phillies. You win a world championship. Then you end up in Chicago. Talk a little bit about going to the South Side.
Well, I was born and raised in obviously in northern Indiana, and we started watching the Cub games back in the '50s with Jack Brickhouse and Vince Lloyd doing the games, and we would pick those up. So I got to watch the Cubs a lot, but I never watched the White Sox all that much. I was not a White Sox fan. I was a big Yankee fan. Like I told Bob earlier, I was a big Mickey Mantle fan, and they televised the Yankees just about every Saturday, I think, back when I was growing up. So I was a big time Yankee fan, not much on the White Sox. But the one thing that happened to me in Chicago with the White Sox, of course, I got to play under Tony La Russa, and but I got the locker next to Tom Seaver for that whole year.
Wow.
And I only wish that I would have lockered next to him my rookie year in baseball as opposed to my last year.
Yeah.
Because this man knew pitching upside down, inside out, sideways. And he and I spent a lot of time, we lockered right next to each other and just spent a lot of time talking. And I got to know him. And he was a quiet guy. You had to prove yourself that you were legit to be able to talk to him. But he and I got along really well. And he taught me a lot about pitching that I knew of some of it, but not all of it, obviously. And I wish I would have known him and locker next to him years before. Might have improved my one-loss record.
Yeah, and he was one of those long striders as well. Always used his legs. Nolan used his legs. You use your legs. A lot of guys, were shorter leg guys, but I think in teaching any kid how to play, especially my own, use your legs, drive with your legs when you throw, absorb with your hips, push off with your plant foot to allow your hips and your shoulders to rotate. And for obvious reasons, Tom not only could do it at the highest of levels, but you said he's a quiet guy, right? You really got to bring it out of him.
Yeah, he incredible. And so I can't remember who it was, but somebody told me a long time ago that a pitcher's legs will wear out before his arm does. It sounds like a Jim Cott quote. And it probably was Kitty. And he's, your legs will wear out long before your arms. Get your legs in great shape, and that'll help you your arm strength overall. And I ran every day. There wasn't a day I didn't run. I ran every day.
Well, you were used to, because basketball, you had to run the suicides or line drills all the time. You had no choice.
I tell you what, I've never run so much in my life as my 2 years in the NBA. It wasn't make the basket and then wave to the crowd and show off and do all that. So you had to get your britches back down the floor and get ready to play defense if you made a hoop.
Yeah,
And it was just fast break back and forth, especially a team like Dadgum Celtics with Sam and Casey Jones out there and Russell getting all the rebounds and Havlicek throwing the ball out and then running down the floor. My gosh, you better get back real quick because they're coming at you.
Do you have any memories of playing against Wilt Chamberlain?
I have got a real good memory of Wilt. We were playing against Wilt in center, and it was one of those. I got a rebound and threw it out, and let's see how that. Somebody got a rebound, threw it out. It wasn't me, and I was kind of lagging behind a little bit, and Wilt was lagging a little behind, and fast break going the other way. They missed the shot. We got the rebound, and somebody threw the ball out to me at half court, and I'm turning around. I'm going down the court, and the only guy between me and the basket is Wilt. And I'm going down there, and somehow I made a fake or whatever, and somehow I still don't know how, but I got around him and dunked the ball. He didn't quite get back. He stopped about the free throw line. I don't think he was expecting me to go all the way, and I got around him and made the basket. Actually, dunked the ball. And next time down the floor, there was a foul, and Wilt comes over. We're going to get on the foul line, and Wilt comes over to me and looks down at me and says, "Little white boy, don't you ever do that again." And I said, "Mr. Chamberlain, I don't have to. I've got something now I can tell my grandkids." Now, years later, I mean, like 5 years later, Wilt's still in the NBA. I'm with the Braves in Atlanta, and we're waiting on a bus outside of the hotel in New York, ready to go to Shea Stadium to play against the Mets. And who comes? And Hank is on the bus. And I told Hank that story, and Hank, of course, shook his head. "Yeah, right. Yeah, you don't on Wilt." "Okay, no problem." Who comes walking down the street but Wilt in New York? And Hank sees him and rolls the back window down. "Hey, Wilt, how you doing?" "Hey, Hammer, how you doing?" "Hey, come on, get on the bus." Wilt comes over and gets on the bus. Hank's in the back of the bus. I'm about halfway back. And Wilt's walking down, and he walks by me, looks down, and stops, turns around, and looks at me and says, "Ron, how are you doing?" He remembered me, and I shook his hand. "I'm doing great, Wilt. How are you doing?" And I melted down into that seat like, man, I'm the king of sports. If Mr. Chamberlain stops and says hello to me, it's some little peon that played against him a long time ago. Now he's back in talk with Hank, and Hank says, "Hey, by the way, did that kid go around? Did Reed go around you and dunk on you?" And Wilt screams at me, says, "Ron, are you still telling those lies that you always told?" I said, No, sir, I don't tell those lies anymore. I promise." So he told, apparently Hank was asking him, but the fact that Wilt remembered me 5 years later, and I was only in the league for 2 years, but he remembered who I was. And I thought, man, that's one of the greatest compliments I've ever gotten from a superstar athlete, I think.
Wow. Hey, Ron, even Arnold Schwarzenegger said when they were training for Conan the Barbarian and Wilt had a cameo role in that movie, he goes, "Wilt Chamberlain is one of the strongest men I've ever met in my life." Did you notice that on the basketball court? Was he just he wasn't physically impressive in terms of muscles and muscularity, but lean like nobody's business. But was he to you as strong as what everybody else says? Because I know that he was. I just don't know how strong he was. What was it like for you?
I know he was strong because he would go in there and they'd throw the ball into him, and the center and a lot of times one or even two of the forwards would go in and grab his arms because they wanted him shooting free throws.
Yeah.
They didn't want him, dunking balls all the time, and he would take the ball up even with people hanging on him and go up and dunk it. He had a waist. I don't think his waist was much more than about 34,
Right.
but he went straight out to the shoulders. He was broad across the back, broad across the shoulders. It doesn't stand out as much because he's such a big man, but if you put his top part on an average sized man, you'd say, man, gosh, that guy must be a weightlifter as strong as he looks. Wilt was strong. He really was unbelievable. But, I never saw him getting any argument or anything. He'd just go up and do his job, up and down the floor and do his job. And anybody that could average 50 points a game in that league and score 100 in that league is an all man because all those aren't shots from outside. They're all in. Most of them were all inside, of course, and people were always grabbing him.
Well, there are folks that take him out of the equation when they talk about who are some of the great players of all time, and Michael, of course, and LeBron, and people talk about that. But one guy on the network has said, when you can't use Wilt as an example because he was the only 7-footer in the league. He was the only one. And Bill Russell was 6'9", 6'10", maybe. Mm. So it was different. But going against a guy like that, with all of those records, leading the league in scoring, leading in assists, right? Leading in points and everything that he had from a category, and never being kicked out of a game for fouling out. I'm amazed at what a amazingly fragile career that he was able to put together in terms of numbers. Yes, he's strong and everything like that, but he was also a very conscientious player, and I'm not going to put my team in trouble and foul out.
I didn't realize that he'd never foul out of a game. I did not know that. But there were two guys in the NBA that were 7 feet tall at that time. Only two.
Yeah.
The other guy was Mel Counts, a big white kid out of Oregon or Oregon State. He was 7 feet tall, and that was it. The others were 6'9", 6'8".
What about Swede Hallbrook?
Who?
Swede Hallbrook, wasn't he 7 feet?
I don't remember that name. I don't think he was in the league when I was there.
Was Nate Thurman 7 feet?
Nate Thurman came. He was like 6'11", I think, is what he was. I think he was 6'11". But now I think every team in the NBA's got one or two guys that are 7 feet tall. Sure. Yeah. The league is definitely bigger, but you cannot convince me that Wilt still couldn't score
100%.
A whole bunch of points, and maybe not 100 a game, but he would get his share of points nowadays, just like he did back then.
Yeah,
because of his strength and because of his athletic ability that he had.
If you ever get a chance, go on a YouTube and look at the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Wilt Chamberlain feud that they had. They only played a couple of years together, but they were in Milwaukee, and Wilt was near the end of his career, but he still was jumping 13 and a half feet in the air to try to block that sky hook. And one of them was set to music, and every time there was a crash in the music, it would be one of them dunking against the other. It didn't happen a lot in their career, but my goodness, their little rivalry that they had for the couple of years that they were playing together, just absolutely amazing basketball.
Unfortunately, they didn't televise as many games back then, and I didn't see those two play against each other all that much.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine anybody could block Kareem's skyhook. I mean, he was up in the air, really up in the air. Wilt probably the only one that might have a chance to block it.
But he got a couple, not many, but he just barely was able to tip with the fingertip and
yeah, I think so. Russell was like you said, was like 6'9", but incredible timing. I mean, he was one of those guys that just he knew exactly where he was going to be at all times underneath that board, and he was going to get the rebound and throw it out to Sam or Casey Jones or Havlicek, and they'd be hauling tail down the other end of the court.
Yeah. Well, you got to be a
Well,
part of
they
that.
tell me you're a scratch golfer. Is that true? The players.
No, I never got to scratch. I got down to single digits,
Wow.
and I tried a couple of Monday chances to try to get on the senior tour. I forgot what they call those. The qualifying Monday qualifiers,
Q
and they
school.
would have about 130 guys tee off, and they may have two spots open. And I came close one time, but no, I never didn't quite have the short game that those guys have. I could hit it out there pretty good, but the short game of the pro golfers is just mind-boggling. They can get it up and down from everywhere. It's amazing how good those guys are.
Well, Ron, what keeps you busy nowadays? I know I've got a couple pictures of you that you get to go back to Philadelphia, get to be a part of that World Championship club, and you were inducted into their Wall of Fame as a World Series champion. You've been an All-Star. What keeps you busy nowadays?
Uh not too much. I've had some battles with bumps in the road, a little health issue here and there. I've had both shoulders replaced, had a knee replaced. I've got more metal in me than I can't get through a radar detector anymore
Well,
at the airport. But yeah, I'm kind of retired. Julie and I spend a lot of time out in our yard working, doing that sort of thing. We still walk. I do a lot of walking, and there's one thing I do want to mention. Uh, Not too long after I got out of baseball, I was invited to a golf tournament out at a place called Lake Oconee, which is about 60 miles east of Atlanta, and they said it was hosted by Mickey Mantle. Well, Mickey was one of my all-time heroes growing up, and so I went out there, and I'll be darned, he's there. I got a chance to meet him, got an autograph from him, but he was doing a uh, golf tournament for a group called Camp Sunshine. Camp Sunshine is a camp here. The main office is here in Atlanta, and they have a camp out there at that golf near that golf facility, and it's for kids with cancer. And Mickey raised money for those kids. Well, I was starting to get a lot of bubblegum cards in the mail from people wanting autographs, which I was signing. And I thought, you know what? I would like to do something for those kids in memory of Mickey. So Julie made up a whole bunch of pages or cards saying, I will sign any autograph on any bubblegum card for a $5 donation to Camp Sunshine. And the response was just so overbearing. I could not believe people started, they would send the card back with $5 in it, and then up to $10. And this has been going on for probably 40, 45 years. That all the money, every cent that I get for signing, all goes to Camp Sunshine. Just
That's great.
just to say thank you, Mickey, for putting me on to these kids. They're all, like I say, they're all kids for cancer, and Mickey can do it. I sure can do it. And I've gotten so many requests for signing cards, photos. One guy in LA sent me a baseball that had nothing but two sport athletes on it. But he sent me a letter first of all saying, "Would you sign this baseball for me?" And I said, "Yes, I'll be happy to, but I need a little donation, whatever you think is worth, to Camp Sunshine." Well, he sent me the ball, and I signed right underneath the name of Chuck Connors.
oh, wow.
There's a baseball out there in LA somewhere. Some guy sent to me that they had all kinds of two sport athletes on there, but there was a little opening underneath Chuck Connors. So I'm right underneath the rifleman, and this guy sent me $100 for Camp Sunshine.
How about that?
Right.
That's so
And
cool.
I went, oh man, that's awesome. But everything that comes in goes to those kids, and I'm just happy to be able to do that and give something back. And these kids are needy kids, obviously, and there's so many great organizations out there that need help. But I jumped on the Camp Sunshine, so that's basically I still average probably 5 cards a week. coming in the mail to sign, and the word is out, and people all have $10 bills in there for me that I send on to Camp Sunshine. So that's basically what I'm doing more than anything else, being the secretary and signing cards.
Well, we sure appreciate it for obvious reasons. Giving back with just something as a couple bucks. It's a great trade out, and so thank you for doing
No,
that.
yeah, I'm not asking for it. No, don't worry about it. I'm taking care of the kids. I'm not. That's up to you. But I'm not looking for donations of any kind. I'm just happy to be able to talk to you guys and do this.
We completely
bring back memories for me.
Yeah, well, I completely agree with you, and Ron, for you to be able to say, you know what, I'll sign anything, and it just help out some kids. Would you mind? Just help there with their medical bills, and what a great idea. There's 13 of you: Danny Ainge, Frank Bumholtz, Hank Biasetti, Gene Conley. You mentioned Chuck Connor in alphabetical order. A guy named Dave DeBuscher, who you were teammates with. That the two of you were. Now it'd be great if the two of you were teammates in basketball and in baseball. That didn't happen. Dick Grote, Steve Hamilton, Mark Hendricks, Cotton Nash, who you mentioned earlier on the show, Dick Ricketts, and Howie Schultz are the 13 individuals in the world that were able to play Major League Baseball and NBA basketball at the professional and the highest level.
I didn't know that number. I knew there was like 25 or 26, maybe 27 guys that played two sports, like Bo Jackson, but he played baseball and football.
Correct.
But I didn't realize there were 13 baseball NBA players combined. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But it was, like I say, it was too really lucky to make both of them, because it was just pure luck that I got in the NBA. And even more luck in baseball, but things worked out. I paid the price that I had to pay, and it worked out for me.
Well, a couple of years ago, they honored you in Philadelphia. In 2022, you're inducted into the Philly Wall of Fame. Congratulations on that as well.
Thank you. That's quite an honor. I think there's 46 of us now, 47, something like that, on that wall out there. And just to be part of that organization, and thank goodness I wasn't traded away when I wanted them to trade me. I'm glad I stayed there.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Ron, it's been a pleasure having you on with us. We've taken a little bit more of your time. Bob, if you don't mind, final thoughts from you.
That's why I love doing these podcasts, because I thought I knew everything about Ron Reed, but I heard things I didn't know, and I love the Wilt Chamberlain story on the bus in New York, and I love just a great story. And he said, "Don't ever do that again to me, white boy." I'll remember that.
That was Wilt. He was
a real character. I met Wilt. He's a wonderful guy. I liked him, but. No, it's an honor to have you on, Ron, and I'm so glad you're doing good. And thank your beautiful wife, Julie, for getting us in here. They say a woman's touch. Boy, I'm glad for Julie.
Yeah, I apologize for not. I was under the impression it was all going to be done by phone. Didn't realize I was going to be on the screen for some reason. I'll just plead innocence because of age. I'm so forgetful about so many things. I'm sorry, it had to work out like it did.
You can go right after this. You can go have Julie get it on YouTube on television. You'll see it on TV. So
I gotta get her phone back to her. She's missing out some phone calls, and I know she's got a whole bunch of them coming in. So I'll let her get back. She keeps up with some of the wives even to this day. So.
Wow.
Well, we want to thank you for being a guest on the show. We want to thank you for your contribution to professional baseball, basketball. You were a football player also in high school. Little Laporte, Indiana is all the much better because of you. Thank you so much, Ron, for not only being a guest, but for all that you've done to make the game a little bit better. You are a good man, and we appreciate having you on. And we want to say thank you to all that watched the show here today. Ron Reed was our guest. He's a world champion. He's been an all-star. And he's also a guy that Wilt Chamberlain stopped on a bus and go, "Hey, I know you. What's going on?" Perfect trifecta, at least for this show. We want to say thank you for Ron's time here today. And thank you for watching, everybody. If you like the show, please like or subscribe, tell a friend. We also just want to say thank you for watching 100 Yards of Football. For Bob Case, For Ron Reed, I'm Harper LeBel saying thank you for tuning in to the Sports Page as a part of 100 Yards